Hi, this is Devinder Singh from Byteline, and this video is about web scraping. So we're gonna scrape data from Etsy using Byteline's Chrome extension. And the data we have is, so we're gonna source the Etsy URLs from Google Sheets, scrape the data, and put the scrape data back into the same Google Sheets, but in a separate sheet. Um, and I'll show you more when I explain the setup. And we also gonna use the concept of loop over here to extract multiple URLs. So we have multiple Etsy URLs. So for each URL, we're gonna extract the price and title of the product. So let's start. I'm gonna name this flow Etsy scraper, and we're gonna run it every couple of hours. So the first node in our flow is gonna be Google Sheets read values. And let's sign in into our Google Sheets account. I'm gonna use this account, allow. This is successful. So now let's go back and refresh, and we are connected. And on the Google Sheet side, so here is the spreadsheet I'm gonna use. So I have these 4 Etsy URLs that we're gonna scrape. I mean, this is just for the video that I kept 4, but you can even have thousands of URLs and you won't have any issue. And I'm gonna send all the scrape data into the second sheet, which is called scraped. So right now it's empty, but that's where all the data is gonna come. Okay, and then to get the spreadsheet ID, so what you have to do is copy this big string within the URL. That is a spreadsheet ID, and copy over here. So now save this, and we'll do a test run to make sure we are getting all the data. And just remember to deploy the flow whenever you make any change. Otherwise your change won't be in effect. Okay, so this is successful and we got all 4 URLs. Okay, so now we will use these URLs to configure our scraper. Now here is our web scraper, and this is what we need to configure. And we're gonna use the Chrome extension. So let's open one of the Etsy URLs, and I can show you how how to use the Chrome extension to configure the scraper. Okay, so we're gonna get this title and the price. So let's enable the Chrome extension. And as you move after enabling the extension, it's gonna highlight the elements that you can scrape. So just so I went to the title element over here, and then just double click to extract it or to copy its XPath. And then go over here on the console side and paste the copied value into this black box. And then you can click the add scalar field. And this is our title. And I have used scalar field here because we only have a single instance of this title field on the whole page. But if you're working with a table or some repeating elements, so in that case you will use array field. So now let's do the similar thing for price. Add scalar field price. So these are the fields that we're gonna get. And now let's configure the loop over. So loop over always happens on array fields. So what I did was I just clicked on this tool, the select variable tool button. So it shows us all the variables that are available in a flow to be used. We're gonna go to output section, as here in the output section, it shows the output of various nodes. So we want to use the output from the Google Sheets read values, and this is the array that we can use. So for loop over, you always requires a array field because it needs to iterate over it. So let's copy this. So it automatically sends the selected value here. So now let's select the URL, and for that you can use this select variable tool button here. We're gonna add like another button next to this field, but for now we can use this one. And then the same thing. So again, this is the transform, but we're gonna pick this column 0 here because that is linked to the URL. So now as you take the cursor out of this field, it automatically changes this to loop over notation, add dot. So what this means is, so we're gonna use the column 0, which is our URL, for each iterated value. Okay, so that's our setup for the web scraper. So now let's save it, deploy, and do a test run. Okay, so this is successful. So now here is the data that we got. So this is the URL that we used, and in the scraped value we have price and the title. So now let's export this data into Google Sheets. So for that we're gonna use Google Sheets insert all task, and then let's configure it. So the spreadsheet ID is the same value. And for sheet name, as I told earlier, so we're gonna use the scraped sheet. So make sure the name exactly matches with your Google Sheet. And then we're gonna use the spreadsheet data. So for the spreadsheet data that goes into the spreadsheet, so we're gonna use the web scraper output, right? Because we want to add the scrape data. So for that, we're gonna select this looped array. So again, I mean, you're gonna use the array here because we want to add multiple rows of data into the sheet. So let's save this. So clear values is usually required when if you want to clear the existing data. But in my case, like, you know, because the sheet is empty, so I'm just gonna leave it blank for now. So let's deploy and run it. But because this flow is gonna run on a scheduled basis, it's a good idea to have that clear spreadsheet checked so that every time you are getting a new data, or it's clearing the existing data and overwriting with the new data. So let's give it a few seconds to complete. Okay, so the flow is complete, and now let's look into the stats of this insert all. So it says here 4 rows updated. So now let's go to the Etsy sheet. Let's look into the scrape part. So we got all our data. So here is the URL and the price and the title, and then here is our original data. So I just wrote into the new sheet so that our scrape data is like kind of separate in a different sheet. But you can easily use any Google Sheets formula to get that data here. Okay, so that concludes our video, and I hope you will find it useful for whatever scraping project you are planning for. Okay, thank you.